On the afternoon of the Pearl Harbor attack, President Roosevelt called an emergency meeting. He wanted to directly bomb the Japanese mainland, but the general told him, "Our country and Japan were separated by the entire Pacific. Bombing the Japanese mainland would require aircraft carriers, and Japan would certainly attack these carriers, a loss we couldn't afford. A direct attack on the Japanese mainland was nearly impossible." The president remained silent, then forcefully pulled himself up with his paralyzed legs, struggling to stand. He said even if the entire country had to be sacrificed, this revenge would be taken. 2 days later, our country officially declared war on Japan. They prepared to bomb the Japanese mainland. To prevent carrier attacks, they planned to launch bombers when 800 kilometers from Japan, then have the carriers immediately return. The bombers would attack and then land in China. Of course, they'd notify China in advance. They modified the bombers, removing armor and machine guns, to reduce weight and extend range. On April 2, 1942, 5 months after the Pearl Harbor attack, our USS Hornet, carrying 16 modified B-25 bombers, headed toward Tokyo. Before takeoff, the commander gave the pilots a friendship medal left by Japan during fake peace talks, telling them to return it. On the morning of April 18, 16 B-25 bombers took to the sky. Compared to the 300-plus fighter planes in the Pearl Harbor attack, this seemed an insignificant threat, but this was just a tiny raindrop before the storm. At noon, our planes reached Japanese airspace. When Japanese anti-aircraft guns began firing, our bombers' bombs were already falling. The friendship medal Japan had given was returned to Japan, carried by a bomb. Bombs rained down, hitting Tokyo, Yokohama, Kobe, and Nagoya. Japanese people scattered in panic. Even the emperor entered a bomb shelter for the first time, though this bombing killed only 50 and wounded about 200. This was just the first bombing of Japan. From 1944 to 1945, our Air Force bombed 98 Japanese cities for 8 continuous months, deploying 33,000 B-29 bombing missions, dropping 160,000 tons of ammunition, causing 500,000 casualties. 24% of Japan was reduced to ruins. Tokyo, the capital, suffered the most damage. The most devastating conventional air raid in human history. Over 50% of the city was burned. More than 1 million people left homeless. I felt totally vindicated. But despite all this, the Japanese emperor refused to surrender. We were speechless. How thick could his skin be? On the brink of national destruction, yet still refusing to surrender. So, we brought out our secret weapon, the atomic bomb. On August 6, 1945, at 9 a.m., a B-29 bomber dropped a bomb named Little Boy on Hiroshima. 45 seconds later, the bomb exploded 600 meters above ground, releasing a blinding white light. A deafening explosion followed. A massive mushroom cloud instantly rose. Hundreds of fire columns shot up. Hiroshima became a sea of fire. 16 kilometers away, people could feel the scorching heat. Hiroshima's population was about 350,000. 88,000 died that day. 50,000 were injured or missing. We thought Japan would surely surrender now, but Japan believed we had only this one weapon, and still refused to surrender. So 3 days later, on August 9th, a second bomb, Fat Man, fell on Nagasaki. We issued a final ultimatum: surrender or face total atomic destruction. Japan's leadership was completely stunned. On August 15, 1945, Japan announced unconditional surrender. World War II finally ended. Our country traded 2 atomic bombs for world peace, hoping there would never be a third world war.